Hey guys, welcome to my article presentation. Today I just want to analyze a few of the larger aspects of an article that I recently found for the upcoming research paper. As a history major, the Chicago Manual style is often the formatting style of choice, although Turabian is also acceptable, but we're going to go over CMS today. Excuse me. I also want to cover several topics in this video, including the general formatting, illustrations, quotations and related components, headings, reporting verbs, voice, integral and non-integral citations, vocab, meta-discourse, and also types and number of citations. I know you're as excited as I am, so let's go ahead and get started. First, I just want to talk about the basic formatting for articles in CMS. Much of CMS format is pretty standard from beginning to end. There's often a title page, especially in papers, but these are optional as long as the title appears on the first page of the work, like you see right here. And that's because, especially in this case, it appeared in a scholarly journal article. So that's what we're looking at today. Also worth noting, CMS makes use of footnotes or endnotes. Today we got footnotes in this one here. And also bibliography typically appears at the end in alphabetical order, but we'll talk more about that here in a little bit. All right, let's move on down to the next page here. Next couple pages. And now let's look at illustrations and figures in this like. There are unfortunately none in here. I wish I had some pretty pictures to show you, but that's just the nature of the publication that it's to be found in here. Visual aids and illustrations can play heavily in works using CMS, especially considering the importance of primary and secondary sources in history. And I believe that the lack of them here, like I said, is just a symptom of being in this particular type of work. But you would often see them. All right, let's move on to third, and we can talk about the usage of quotations here and their importance in historical writing. I'm going to go on down. Oh, actually, it's right here. There's one of my examples right there, a large vulgar beast. So, there's extensive use of quotes by Mr. Turner here in this article, which is not at all uncommon. He makes use of these quotes to give us a certain flow, but we find block quotations too as a way of providing emphasis for important sections and ideas. And I think there's one just down here somewhere that I've highlighted. Yeah, here it is. There's a block quote that I've highlighted for you. Effective use of quotations, such as the ones found in this article, is essential to historical writing of any kind because it not only makes the writing more interesting, but it lends to its credibility as well. All right, so moving on from quotations, let's now discuss headings. And I've got an example down here on the next page. You see collective security approach. Unlike many other formatting styles, CMS doesn't follow any particular formula other than requiring that the heading be pertinent to the information over which it stands. So like this section here, collective security approach, that's talking about what's going to follow here in this section. If you'll notice, the headings found here in Mr. Turner's article don't necessarily need any structure, like I've said, other than chronological order, probably. But that almost goes without saying because history is obviously a chronological study. So that would follow through logical deduction. All right, now I'd like to cover the occurrence of reporting verbs. So we're going to move on down, scoot to page 129 here. There's a very obvious one for you, historian's report. And as I noted earlier, the use, oh, excuse me, that's the, yeah, okay, excuse me. As I noted earlier, the use of quotes is woven into the very fabric of historically based writing, and as a result, a proliferation of these reporting verbs necessarily follows. We can see by these highlighted examples, like the one I have right here, and a couple more down on the next couple of pages, suggested, while some historians have observed. We see that they coincide with the appearance of quotes, often preceding them. So overall, I would say that this helps the flow of quote incorporation and adds a scholarly sounding element to the writing of the article. All right, so now we're going to talk about voice. I'm going to go back up to page 132, and we see some different highlighted examples here for you. The voice used in the writing of history-based projects, such as this one, is also extremely important to the field of articles such as this. In the case of Turner's writing, active voice is clearly the preferred means of communication. Noticing all the examples highlighted here, Eaton's greatest achievement was Saddam Hussein had every reason, Secretary of Defense Richard Cheney fired, all great examples of active voice. Remaining in the active voice is important for at least a couple of reasons in historical CMS formatted writing. For instance, passive voicing tends to make wording overly complicated and could lead to confusion or unnecessary wordiness. This is a particular problem in a writing style that relies so much on the usage of quotes. That could really get dangerous and entangling. All right, our next topic for discussion now then is going to be integral versus non-integral citations. So for that, we're going to go to the next page. I think that's what I just skipped. Yep, right here. All right, because of the presence of footnotes at the bottom of every page, I feel as though too many integral citations would be a bit redundant, seeing as you can simply refer to the bottom of any given page. Um, the fluidity of the piece is also greatly enhanced by not having to bother with constant in-text references, I feel like. So that is a major boost for the CMS style. Honestly, next, I was going to talk about vocab and jargon. There's not a whole lot to say here concerning that. It really seems that Turner's sort of taken an intellectual middle road. The writing is definitely scholarly, but it's not so specialized that the average reader or average adult in general wouldn't be able to understand the article. All right, so moving on to meta discourse, then we're going to go to page 136. Excuse me. Oh, there's it. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. And I would like to focus on two specific areas, hedging and self-mentions. Hedging factors pretty prominently in the authoring of pieces on history in CMS. I believe this has a lot to do with the fact that historical events and political happenings are deeply entangled in contingencies and as a result must be qualified. Like we see here, Jefferson and Madison may have erred, so you have to be careful. Self-mentions appear also to run the gamut in this piece. In general, works about history and/or formatted in CMS tend to utilize third-person mentions, but Turner's treating of somewhat recent events occasions his use of first person as well. And I think I have some examples of that down here on page 139. Yeah, our response is an example of the first person, but he typically is using third person mostly. And finally, I'd like to talk about the type and number of citations found in this article. So for that, I'm going to go right here to the penultimate page where I have this highlighted here. As I previously mentioned, as you probably noticed as I've been sort of scrolling through this, CMS uses footnotes or endnotes. Here it uses footnotes. And there are a large number of citations, 72 total citations in this work. And it's not that long of an article, really. Um, this absolutely has to do with the fact that history depends so heavily on past events and the lives and writings of historical figures and other scholars in the field. There's no way to get around it. So, Robert Turner's article is an excellent example of everything that one would look for in a CMS style piece of literature. It's chock full of well incorporated sources, overwhelmingly presented in the active voice, and uses hedges and self mentions very effectively, just to name a few things. One of the only things I did notice that was missing here is there's no bibliography, which I thought was a little weird, but when I thought about it, it is in a journal article, so maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe it was in another part of the journal article or it got cut out here. I'm not really sure. But anyway, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my presentation. I hope it's taught you something about the Chicago manual style. See you guys.